Hello, and welcome. In this video, we're going to be disassembling and reassembling these Shimano Deore M510 shifters. I already did a previous video on these, one of the first ones in fact, and it was such of poor quality I felt like it was in need of an update, and here at Appway we're constantly trying to improve our videos. I think we're going to begin with the free-speeded side. I think it's this one. Yeah. So instantly I can see that there's a problem with the dial here. It doesn't seem to be connected. Maybe it's broken, I don't know. And first thing you want to do is make sure that there's no more tension in the spring. We're going to remove the rear cover here with I think it's a PH2, no, it's a PH1 Phillips screwdriver. Of course these are JIS screws underneath, but that works. Is that enough to take it off? No. Can't get this off. That's underneath the. Move that. You have to kind of move this a little bit. Let's move it again. There you go. Cool. Now underneath here, you'll see that this nut is kind of trapped within these tabs that have been bent down onto it. So we're going to just remove some of them or bend them back so that we can have access to that nut. Maybe I can do it with this. Now I'm going to need something more flat. So I'm just going to zoom in. I've got a knife. I had to move the nut a little bit. It's a number size 8 to kind of just get behind these tabs. There you go. So we got one. There you go. Okay, got them all bent back. I have to get a socket for this. Yeah, finally got that off. So remember that was locked onto here, and I think we can just lift this whole thing off. And next you'll see there's one tip of the spring that's inside here, and the other one is hooked onto that part there. We're now going to be able to lift up normally this lever. There you go. But that's going to be well fun putting that back on. So we'll take off the spring. Looks like there's a bushing. And right here you have another pull. We'll remove that to clean underneath. We're now at our second lever. Doesn't seem to want to come off. We might have to remove the cover to have better access. Let's begin by removing the barrel adjuster. Seems to be a screw there. And one underneath, that's right there. Let's undo this one first. And I just found this very skinny, very thin washer. It's fallen off from somewhere. It might have been on this underneath. Luckily I just saw that now. I'm going to undo the screw here as well. Just managed to remove it. There was an insect in there. So taking off that cover. Next, looks like we can remove this plate now. There's a tiny, so that screw was holding down this plate. And there's now like a tiny little E-clip here that we need to remove. Be careful not to lose that. So next underneath is a sprocket and our cam. There's a spring underneath that cam. I think we're going to remove the pull here, double-ended one. It's held on by a little spring, so we need to unlatch. There's a spring right there. There. Got it off. It's very, very tight. That spring won't be fun to put back on. And now we should be able to lift it up. The spring that was underneath that pull. Having a hard time though. Ah, that's why. There's a small E-clip holding that spring as well. I'm going to have to get something thinner to remove it. So there's this sprocket. There you go. Yeah, so the other tip of that spring, that was latched onto this part. That'll be for us. So there was a bushing. Nothing underneath the cam. We can now take off that spring. We can now lift up this plate. And if you want, you can remove the spring there, though I don't really see what's the point, for me anyway. And I think we can inspect the inside here of the dial, and I can see now it's actually broken right there. So don't think I'll be able to repair that. If you undo this screw, you can remove the top of the dial. And so behind here there's that pit, the kind of axle shaft rather for the shifter mechanism, probably removable. Well, my dial's broken, so I'm not going to be able to fix this. So I'm going to put mine back on. So now I'm going to pretty much clean these up a little bit with some, I think I'm just going to use some WD-40 to be quick. And then I'm going to re-grease everything. I am a little bit skeptical about putting this cam back on. That looked quite difficult. Yeah, but we'll find out. So I've cleaned everything up now. Let's reassemble it. So I'm going to take this plate here and we're going to put the little clip back on that I removed. Again, you can take off the spring if you want to clean underneath. We'll also be putting a tiny amounts of grease on all the parts, anywhere there's friction. There. So there's a little E-clip. It's clicked on. It's very hard to decipher between the parts since everything's all black. Next we're going to grab the cam and we're going to put that spring back in. So there's a tiny little hole there at the back where one tip of the spring is going to go. Let me just put some grease on first. So the spring that goes underneath here is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter what side you put it on. And next we're going to put the sprocket. So there is a specific way of putting it. You just need to get the teeth aligned. Where is it? There you go. So it's like that. Now grab the plate now with the spring. We're going to put this back on. So you need to run that little shaft part. Push it through. And that should kind of seat. I probably should mention this actually now I'm here. Yeah, so there would be that broken part of our dial. So if your one was still in good condition, I think it's going through that little square part. And then after, I'm guessing that underneath here somewhere, probably that hole right there is where there would be like a tip of that dial, and you'd want to insert that in there. Or in this part here, I really don't know, maybe this one of the two anyway. So now we need to tension up this cam. That tip of that spring is going to go in between the slot right there at the end of my finger. And then there's this bushing, and hopefully we can just turn this. I'm going to find out in a second. Okay, I understand. We're going to remove that bushing because that's actually in the way. It's going to give us enough movement to tension up our cam, and so I've got to take it back off. There. So we'll put the cam back on. Very fiddly. There, okay. So now we can turn that around. And I think we need to get it to around about here. And then after we can put our bushing in place. And this actually holds. Now I can't turn around more, which is perfect. And you can just check to make sure it's not slipped, but mine looks good. Right, now we need to put that pull back on. I think I might put a little bit of grease there. Just a tiny part. And what you want to do is kind of get the pull, or get that spring in front of the pull so that it reaches towards there. Kind of recline it back. Has it worked? Yeah, got it. So you want this pushing towards there, and there we've got the little tip of the spring. We're going to edge it towards there after. We're going to put our E-clip first. Sorry, my mistake. There's no E-clip here yet. That's after, once we put the top plate. So we will just edge that spring part towards there. There. That should be good. So now we've got this part to put back on, the plate. So you have the tab facing upwards. You need to kind of align everything up. And right there's going to be now that E-clip. You need to really push down to make sure it goes underneath. I think I've got it. There's a screw here. I think it was this longer one. Now we've got to put the cover back on and this lever here. So the tab that's facing downwards, what eventually it's going to be doing is triggering right there the pull to go up. But we need to put the cover back on first. So let's insert that there. And now that we know where that's going, it's going to go there behind, like I said. I'm just going to put a bit more grease. It's about right. Now we've got this type of bushing part. There's one part that's longer and one that's thinner. You want to put that onto the thinner side, going downwards. There. Now before I forget, there's this very, very thin washer that was seated on the top of this. I think we can put that on now. And here again, we're going to put some grease there. And on the other side, and we're going to put some on where we're going to put the pull now. And so now there's this clip again that's going to go underneath. And now we need to install this lever and our return spring for the lever. So this pull is eventually going to be reclining back, and it's going to be going in between this gap, and the pull is actually going to be pushing against that tooth of the sprocket. We also need to tension this up, so I think the best way to do this is first to install the spring, just this tip here on the interior, and eventually that hook part is going to hook up onto there behind this one. So I've got that tip on. Hopefully this works like this. And now you need to kind of get I've got the sprocket there. Is that pushing yet? No. Okay. I've got it all seated, and if you turn you can see it's moving the tooth. And now what we're going to do is take that the hook part, and we're going to try and recline it back up to where I indicated before. Okay, got it, and now I'm going to let go. There, needs to pop underneath. I've just done it. I'm going to test it now and see if this is working. And it is. Great. And now that we've done that, we can reinsert this plate. So you want to tighten up this nut, but obviously not so hard that it affects shifting. Like now, for example, it's not shifting downwards because it's probably too tight. Yeah, that looks like it was at its maximum. To hold the cover in place. fairness, I'd rather put Loctite than bothering with these tabs. Let's put our cover back on and our little screw. Done. We have this little plastic. And our barrel adjuster. And that's it. So now let's move on to the next shifter. And now we're on the 9-speed side. What's wrong with this one again? I think it's a bit sloppy. That's right. So anyway, detention for now. Let's just take this off while we're at it. Underneath we have the cover. So get out of the way. I really don't want you to open these. Ah, man, I can't even take it off. Yeah. So detention completely. We're going to have the same problem again with these tabs. I'm going to have to recline. Tip of the spring again there, and latched onto here. Now I'll lift this up. Oh, this time the spring went flying. So there's a very thin washer above our barrel. So it looks like quite a bit is the same procedure. We're going to take off that lever. There's nothing underneath there. So to remove this top, I've got to take off that little E-clip. Mine's completely covered under some very old grease that's very sticky. There. There's a very, very thin washer above that. There wasn't that on the last one, at least I didn't notice it. So let's pop off that spring. That's on top of the pull. See if I can just unlatch it, yep. And I'm going to lift this up. Remove the sprocket. So now I'm going to lift up the cam. Okay, got that off. So we have our spring, and the spring was indeed in the same place like on the other shifter, there in that gap. And here we have the dial part. Seems to have the spring still on it. I'm going to lift up this plate. I think there's a barrel there. And there you go, we got that off. Nothing underneath. And if you look closely there, you've got the dial, that tip of the spring's holding just there. And the other end is, it's like it's on the other side of this part. I'm not going to take it off because it's quite fiddly. But there you go, if you need to. That's a small indication of how to access it. Well, you'd probably access it from here actually. Undo these 2 or 3 screws. Is that a screw there? Don't think so. Yeah, so anyway, I'm going to clean up all the parts and we're going to move on to assembling it again. And we're going to remove this pull. We've removed now the most of the crud, and now I'm going to move on to reassembling again. So we're going to do like before. I'm going to add on some grease on all the parts that may have friction. So first thing we're going to reinstall is this part. Next we're going to grab the cam, so the spring with the tip sticking out is going to insert underneath. Grab the sprocket, insert it back on the cam. Actually, I think I'm going to put a bit of grease just so it holds in place. You might want to avoid putting too much on here because it then doesn't do that clicking noise. We'll find out. So the other tip of that spring there is going to, and I'll zoom in, or we can see it, it's going to go into that slot right there on the end of my finger. And the other tip of the dial here, I believe it's going to need to be eventually going through here. So I'm going to be twisting it around. I think we want it to be just like that. So I'll re-show that again. It should be stopping here. There. Now it's on. Once you've done that, you can grab the barrel, reinsert that through there. Check that there's tension at the hasn't slipped out. And you can also check the dial. If you're turning it, it should be going up and down. And next is the pull, so it's going to be in this position. You might need to get the spring to go out the way. I'm going to try and do like I did last time. Try and push against it. There, I think I got it. So one part says pushing against the teeth there. And once that's fully seated, you can then flicker the spring back onto there. Now we have this large tab going towards the top. You can now seat that back on. And I thought I'd just add, because it just happened to me, the cam right there slips when you're putting this back on, and it just goes over, and it means you can't see this fully down. And also the one end of the pull needs to go in front of this tab, and you need to kind of recline it back for it to go there, otherwise this gets in the way. Once you've done that though, it should all seat down, and I've just got mine to fully do that. Now on top of this, there's a tiny little fin washer, and we're going to put that on now before I forget. And we'll have a little E-clip and a screw to go down here. You kind of need to push down very hard to get the clip to go underneath. There, got it. Right, now that we've done that, we can put this cover back on. And just as before this, when we're going to install this, the tab, I think it's here, is going to be pushing most likely on the pull on the interior. But I'll take this off now and be better to show you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to go like this. So you're going to insert it through, and then it's going to be clicking on that pull right there. There, got it. And now you'll have the kind of bushing, the shorter end. So this is the thicker, that's the thinner. It's going to go downwards. Seat that on. Now, funnily enough, there was not two thin washers on the last one. Maybe I missed it out. There's two on the top of this one though, from the looks of it. There. We now need to put our pull back on the last lever. There. I believe it's going to actually go declining back at one point. And the E-clip. And so the pull here that's reclining, it's going to recline back, and it's going to go into the spacing right here. It's eventually pushing the parts. Before that though, we need to put the spring back on. So the interior tip of that spring is going to go into the hole right there, the end of my tip of my finger. And we're going to do like we did on the last shifter. We're going to then bring this hook back. Okay, just checking that it's pushing against that sprocket. I think it's in place. It looks like it's well positioned. Now we're going to need to get that spring and bring it up. I think it was up here. Sorry, it's actually going to go on the that second leaf underneath the part right there. So we need to grab it. There you go, hooked it on. Make sure the spring underneath is not overlapping. And you should be able to test this now. It's not shifting downwards, so something's wrong. I found the source of the problem. The tip of that spring there was no longer in that slit. It had fallen into the hole at one point when we were installing, and so everything stopped working. Okay, so fast forward, I'm back here again. Make sure that this spring is not overlapping, otherwise this will not lay flat. You'll notice that the where there's those two spaces, it should be level with the end of that spring. A good way to kind of, I guess, make sure it stays there flat is to put this back on and screw everything down, and then bring the spring back on. But the only trouble with that, of course, is you can't easily catch the spring underneath it, but I think I can. So I'm going to do that. Okay, got it. I will, for one, let's see if it's actually working. Yeah. Right, and now we can kind of try it. And I just found another problem. That screw right there, do not over tighten it, because what it does is it kind of pushes down the plate underneath and it stops the sprocket from moving fully. Now it's working though. I did have that problem, just to say, and that should work. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to put the screws all back on. This nut, you don't want to over tighten it. I just did it now to the point where it was stopping to shift properly, so you need to shift down and up to kind of have the right solution. And then I'm going to put these tabs back on. Right, so cool, looks like it's working. I hope this helped you repair your Shimano Deore M510 shifters. Until next time for another shifter, the radar, or whatever. Peace out.